Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining me in the shop. What you're looking at here is the latest resident here in the island of Misfit Tools. It's called a ball mill. So if you're wondering what a ball mill is, it's a device that uses the power of balls to make big things little. Inside this sexy Playmate drink cooler, we have a bunch of ceramic balls and some partially crushed up glass. And as it tumbles, what happens is the balls keep breaking down the glass until it turns into a powder. That powder, I'm hoping, is fine enough to be considered a pozzolan. Pozzolans, of course, are a silicate material that you add to concrete, and they react with calcium hydroxide in the concrete, and it makes it stronger, harder, more water impervious, blah blah blah. Apparently it does lots of good stuff for it. Pozzolana is an Italian word that the Romans used to describe this kind of fine volcanic glass material that they mixed in with their mortars, and then they coated like baths and aqueducts with it to make it water impervious. So that's where that comes from. So not having access to fine volcanic glass material in my backyard, I went to the internet to try and find someplace I could buy some, and I found this company. And after looking at their material safety data sheet, or this is the technical data sheet, but I looked at all their sheets. The technical data sheet says that their product is made from post-consumer bottle glass that is processed into a very clean off-white powder. So that made me think, well, I've got glass, I can probably make this shit myself. The only problem is that it has to be super fine. This is 325 mesh, and the way they get that is an air jet sieve, which I assume means they're just putting this powder into a stream and forcing it through a mesh that's 325. Now I can't do that, I'm not going to try, but I'm hoping that this process will produce something fine enough. And I don't even have a 325 mesh screen. However, I am surrounded by screen printing material here, so I do have my finest screen. I think is 230, which is pretty damn fine. And I'm thinking, oh here, see I have one right here that I've made up. So I've got a 230 mesh screen right there, waiting and ready to accept some powdered material. So other than the balls for my ball mill, I just basically made this thing out of garbage. It's got some rollerblade wheels that rotate freely on that shaft. This is an old motor from electric scooter. This is a inner tube that I simply sewed together. Actually works pretty damn good. So that worked fine. And what else? There's some MDF and not much else. Oh, this is from a toy wheel. A car toy wheel. Just kind of threaded it onto the end of that shaft. It's very, very sketchy, but it works. So we're going to let this run for 24 hours, sieve out the big stuff, and see what we're left with. Oh, if you're wondering about the power supply, this is actually a computer power supply that I've, fancied up a bit. It's actually running on the 3.3 volt line, which seems to be a reasonable speed for this. I don't know, I would like a speed control for this thing, so I might work on that a little bit. I think I'll clean this dump up while I'm waiting. The noise from the ball mill can get a bit irritating, so I made a little hacienda for it. So you'll notice I've stepped it up to the 5 volt line because I've increased the load on here, and another modification I've made here is I kind of went commercial on. I bought a 4mm, I don't know what the hell you call this thing, it's like a pulley thing, and this stuff, fuck, this is amazing. This is polyurethane belting. You can buy this as just a strip, a long strip, and then you fuse it together just with heat, and damn, it's so strong. It's just like the original belt. Crazy stuff. So if you're looking for belt material that you need to custom make, this is the way to go. Totally cool. Let me show you what we've got going on here. We'll take this over to the screener. So while I was cleaning up, I also decided I'd make a proper screening setup, and it's a couple of tiers here. We've got the 230 mesh screen printing screen, and then just the window screen here, just to sift out the big stuff. And you'll notice that, well, you'll see what's going to happen here. So we'll dump in our goodies. This has been going for, I don't know, 18 hours maybe. And I find that most of the stuff ends up right on the inside here, in the just packed against the walls of the cooler. And I have a ruler to clean that. What the hell did that go? Oh, it is right here. Jeez, how come you never told me? All right, so yeah, it gets packed in there pretty good, and just scrape it out. You can see how much comes off of that. Now, I'm not sure this is the most efficient way of milling this stuff. I've got maybe about a quarter of it filled with balls, and another half or so, or another quarter filled with the material, and then I let it run. So if you're a ball milling expert, you can let me know what I'm doing wrong. You don't get a huge amount every run, but over time it adds up. Okay, then just give it a sift. Okay, now here's the thing, eh? We take this one off, and there's our material that should go through the 230 screen, right? But if you give it a shake, nothing happens. So watch this. So that's fun to watch, but doesn't do shit. And I think it's because this doesn't have any gravity to it. There's no mass there to speak of. So nothing to pull it through, which is why they use that air jet to filter it out. So that left me wondering, you know, is this stuff even fine enough, really? So I devised an experiment to figure that out, and what I did was this. I got a piece of this 230 screen beaker. Up a little rubber band around there. You probably already see where I'm going with this. Then we'll take a bit of our material, put it on the screen, and with the aid of a squirt bottle, we can see if we can get this stuff to pass through the screen. Just add some water to this, acts as a carrier. And if it's fine enough, it should pass through. There you can see it's passed through the screen. So that gives me a fair good bit of confidence that this stuff is fine enough. At least it's 230, maybe more, right? So I just keep doing that until I've got enough to, you know, do something with. So far I've collected maybe 600 grams of the stuff, so it's quite a bit, at least enough to do a little experimenting with. So let's go make some rocks, eh? Alright, let's cast up some concrete. I've got these hospital disposables. Oh, the wonders of Craigslist never cease. Yeah, these were free, of course. They're 2x5x9, perfect little blocks for doing sample stuff on. So I'm just going to mix up 2 batches of concrete. The first one will be without pozzolan. That'll be our control sample. It's going to be 1 part Portland to 2 parts sand. And the other one will be with pozzolan, same proportions, except 15% of the pozzolan. 15% of the Portland will be replaced with pozzolan. That's how that's going to work out. So we'll just mix this up. Use the handy dandy fish scale to do it by weight. And we'll get casting. Oh, would you look at that? Aren't they cute? Now, make sure that you cover your concrete babies with a little plastic bag to keep them warm, because they're going to go for a nice long nap. Actually, concrete doesn't dry, it cures, so you want to keep the moisture in, because that's what does the curing. So there we have it. See you in 30 days. Well, my babies are well past their due date, and that's primarily because of a leaky roof. And of course, one thing always leads to another. Once you got the roof fixed, then you got to do the ceiling, and then once the ceiling's patched, well, then you got to, you know, paint the whole damn thing. So I'm in that process. So let's wake our friends up here and see what we've got. Alright, so let's not mix up our pozzolan and control samples. Well, once we pop them out, we'll label them right away. Ah, there we go. Oh, these hospital disposables are great! Pops right out of there, no problems. Disposable my ass. We're gonna use those a bunch, I think. We got our control samples on the top and the pozzolan ones on the bottom here. There ain't much difference between them. Maybe you could say that the pozzolan ones were just slightly lighter in color than the control, but yeah, fuck, that's just subjective. So what we really want to know is how well these different materials resist stainage. So since it's a fistful of degrees above zero out there, I think I shall don my garbage bag and pull out the wet grinder. So here's the plan. We're just going to polish these up to different grittinesses. Make them shinier and shinier and see how that affects the permeability with respect to stainage. That'll look stupid now, but you just wait. Before long, all the kids will be wearing them. If you're going to do any amount of concrete work, get one of these wet grinders. It's I did it without it for a while, but shit, it makes a hell of a lot of difference. Way easier, I tell ya. And these are just diamond embedded, some sort of, you know, plastic pad that you use to grind shit down with. They come in grits from, well, I don't know, 50 up to whatever, 3,000 or something like that. You can get some pretty shiny out of those things. Alright, I'm sure my bronchitis is gonna thank me for this. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck. Might help if I put a pad on, eh? Whoa, that's cold on the old meat puppets. I think it's time for a break here. So far I've got everything up to 100 grit. Now we're just going to step through the rest of these until we reach the appropriate shininess, and then we'll be done. Time to find out whether pozzolans are all they're cracked up to be. Got our evil twins here, obviously fraternal twins, red wine and canola oil. Used to be called rapeseed oil as far as I can recall. Sometime we stopped doing that. I think they still call it rapeseed oil in Europe, maybe. Could be wrong about that. Could be, of course, that they changed the name after they genetically engineered the stuff. And so, you know, the genetically engineered term is canola, and rapeseed is the original plant. Ugh, I'm totally making shit up now, so I don't know if that's true. What we're going to do is we're going to put little dots of wine or oil along here, one every hour, so it'll kind of give us a gradient of how long things take to screw things up. Notice that one half is much shinier than the other, and the reason for that is I've polished the one half with this homemade concrete wax just to give the concrete a fighting chance against these things. And you know, because the ultimate goal is to use it as a countertop, and if you can manage to keep it from staining for 8 hours or so, then you know, you've got something that you can probably work with. There's a good 5 coats of carnauba wax on this, which I know for a fact will not prevent that from staining, because it is acidic enough that it'll eat through the wax. The oil, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different story, and I'm not really sure if it's going to dissolve the wax on here, or if it'll manage to occlude it completely. I know in the past I've not had success with the oil versus carnauba, but it could be because I didn't put enough layers on. There could be something else going on there. So, oh, wait a minute, that gives me an idea. Why don't we do a little side experiment here? A little bonus experiment. This is what carnauba wax looks like at room temperature. It's a very hard and kind of brittle wax with a super high melting point for a wax. It's like 80 some degrees Celsius. So that's pretty crazy. So you can see the appeal of it as a top coat for protecting concrete countertops. Now, of course, the question is, can oil actually dissolve this? So to that end, let's do this. This is a little vial. We'll fill it, we'll add some canola oil to it. And to that, let's throw in a little few chunks of our carnauba wax. So, obviously it's not dissolving immediately. We'll leave it for a while and just see what happens to it. Okay, back to the main event. See, this is how things get complicated. You start one thing and then another. It's just stupid. So we're going to just put the dots down. I'm hoping I can do 8 dots for each, 1 an hour. I realize this video is probably way too fucking long, so we're just in it for the long haul, I think. Anyway, this is super interesting. This is the control samples, and you can see this is like basically raw concrete. At 100, it's smooth, but it's not, yeah, not polished at all. And it pretty much soaks in. This is after, you know, only after an hour and like 10 minutes. Just by polishing it up to 400, you can see it beads off a little better there. It's difficult to know whether it's actually penetrating, but it doesn't seem to be spreading too bad. And then if you bump it up to 800, look at that. It stands off even more from the concrete. So it looks like giving it a good polish is actually fairly beneficial to preventing some of this stuff from causing problems. Go figure, eh? All right, we're done here. 8 hours has passed, 1 dot per hour, so there's 8 dots each. And we'll just clean these up and then have a look at the results. So exciting. Oh boy. All right, so because I'm an idiot, I didn't take pictures of these before I washed everything off, which is unfortunate because it kind of changed after I cleaned it up a bit. However, there are lessons to be learned from this, so let's go over those. So let's take a look at the control sample 100 grit. So at first blush, this looks pretty good, except there's a problem here. The oil actually diffused into the concrete. So it didn't stay as one single dot. It just kind of spread throughout this concrete, so it kind of lessens the appearance of the stain, which is kind of interesting. So if we go to the same sample but with pozzolan, we see that you can get distinct dots. So there's less diffusion in the pozzolan sample. So there is a difference here, but yeah, in either case, it's not doing anything to keep that oil out. Now, for the control 400, the higher you polish it, the less diffusion you're going to get on the onset. And in fact, you know, this is 1 hour. So you're still getting penetration after 1 hour, but it's not nearly as severe. And for the pozzolan sample, more distinct, exactly the same, more distinct dots. You can probably get away with 1 hour of this stuff on your concrete without too much damage. There is a slight stain there, but it's not huge. But by the time you've gone to what, 3 hours here, you've got a problem already. 800, more shiny. And again, the dots are more distinct than with the 400, but yeah, and still quite a bit of diffusion around them. And again, with the pozzolan samples, the dots are getting even more sharp, which means it's staying in the same area. That dot is staying in the same area and not diffusing throughout the sample. So yeah. Now let's switch to wine, and there's not much to say here. Every one of them stains after a single hour. It doesn't matter, pozzolan, no pozzolan, 1 hour, you're hooped. You're going to get a wine stain on your concrete after an hour. So there's no getting around it. You're screwed any way you look at it. The bad news here, folks, is that adding pozzolans to your concrete mix isn't going to do jack shit for preventing stains. I'm sorry. I really was hoping it was going to be some other way, but it ain't. There is a bit of good news here, however, because every sample that had the wax on it prevented both the oil and the wine from penetrating into the concrete. No stainage whatsoever after 8 hours. I'm not sure the camera is capable of picking this up, but if you look at just the right angle, you can see that there are little dots, little dull areas where the oil was sitting on the wax. And what I think happens there is that the oil is simply just, you know, just ever so slightly eating away at the finish. Dissolving the finish, I guess. Leaving these little discolorations. It looks like after 1 hour, if you get it off before 1 hour, there's barely anything there to deal with. But beyond that, 2, 3, 4, up to 8, you're going to have a little slight discoloration. Not a big deal though. I would assume that either it's polishable, maybe not, or you can simply add another layer of wax to that. Get rid of that. For wine, after 8 hours, there is a slight etching right here. I can't really see anything for any previous time period, so yeah, that's damn good, considering this is what you end up with if you don't have it on there. So yeah, one reapplication of wax takes out those imperfections. So that's good to know. I'm a bit disappointed that the pozzolans didn't really do more for the integrity of the concrete. Your better bet is to just polish it. You get more benefit out of the polishing than you do just adding pozzolans to it. So as far as stain resistance is concerned, let's get that straight. There may be other benefits, strength, whatever, I don't know, but not for stain resistance. However, I am bloody pleased with how well this stuff worked. If you're looking for something to protect your concrete countertops, this is the duck's nuts right here. It is easy to make and it's super cheap, so you can't really get much better than that. So if you slather on half a dozen or more coats of concrete wax onto your countertop, I think you're going to be fine. Should we really be that surprised? Really? Because pretty much everything is better when it's waxed. I will put a link to the video where I make this stuff, you know, somewhere where you'll be able to find it, and then you can see for yourself how freaking easy this stuff is to make. I think that about does it for this video. You have no idea how pleased I am that this wasn't a complete waste of time. Really, you have no idea. So, thanks for watching. Cheers. If you're wondering about the bonus experiment, here it is here. It's actually been about, let's say, what, 4 days sitting in oil? And we still have our flakes. So they're not completely gone. There may be some dissolution into the solution, but yeah, not significant, I don't think. Now it looks like I'm gonna have to find something else to do with this kilogram of ultrafine powdered glass. Have you heard about the pozzolan diet before? Makes a tasty smoothie.